Progress.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're continuing in Sefer Chofetz Chaim, Chilek Beis, Hilchos Rechilus, Klal Tes, Halacha Yud Aleph. Until now, we're talking about a guy, and you have a friend. He's just call him Mr. Gullible. He'll fall for anything, and he's been telling you he wants to buy this really brand new car, and you see him walking into this shop in East New York that says brand new cars, and they're basically lemons that they did some body work on. So you need to tell the guy, you need to warn him that he doesn't come to being financially tricked. But that's only if you could warn him before he buys it. If you already bought the merchandise. So the guy says, hey, you like my suit? I just bought this custom suit for $3,000. The guy bought a shmata. You wouldn't even use it as a paper bag. The guy got tricked. Either in the price, or they're holes in the suit. It looks like Swiss cheese. If, according to halacha, he has no recourse because it's less than a sixth, either because the financial abuse was less than a sixth, or there is a certain statute of limitation of when there is recourse to get your money back. You have a certain amount of time to show it to your family. But if, let's say, it's a year later, and the guy says, you see this suit? It's a brand new suit. I bought it a year ago, but it's in my closet for last year. And the guy bought a you wouldn't even use it to wipe the floors in your house. That's what a shmata is. Or the time passed to show it to a merchant or your relative. Or whatever other reason the one who was abused loses out. If you go and stir up the one who was abused that he was tricked, you're a Rechilus, you're over Rechilus, given the Alpidin Torah, the guy who was tricked has no recourse. Then what you're doing is you're just chirping, you're talking. You're like a peddler. You're just carrying wares from one to another. And even if the guy says, no, how do I look in my new suit? You say, you look like $1 million. Where'd you get that suit? I think I need to go there. You shouldn't tell him the truth. Even though he looks like a schlepper, even though he looks like he could be a professional schnorrer, you tell him, you look like Rockefeller today.
But maybe he'll go again.
What?
Maybe he'll buy a second time then.
Maybe he'll buy a second time? He's not asking you if he should buy a second time, he's asking how he looks in the suit. Do you now have to be concerned? Gamkin lo yomer emes. Especially if you think that the guy who he bought it from will now lose out money. Let's say the person who was fooled will then take the merchandise, dump it in a store and grab his money back, or won't pay whatever else he owes. Won't pay the extra money that he's still chayiv. It's definitely a great sin if you bring to this. But if you see shalpi din Torah, if you see halachically the din is with him, meaning with the person who was tricked, either he could retract, or either he could retract on the sale, on the purchase, or get back the amount of money he was overcharged. And if the guy who was fooled knows about it, he would not want it. You have to tell him the truth as it is, so that he could get his ayna. You have to meet the following 5 conditions. Here we go. Number 1, you can't exaggerate. In other words, if the guy was gypped $300 and you say you paid $1,000 for the suit, it's not worth more than $57. It is. Maybe it's worth $500. You can't exaggerate. Number two, your kavana needs to be to help the guy, and not finally you have an opportunity to badmouth the seller. Let's say like this. The seller one time didn't invite you to his wedding, and you've been waiting for an opportunity when you could badmouth him. So what you did was you decided to learn the whole Sefer Chofetz Chaim to find one loophole in halacha that you have an opportunity to badmouth the guy. And now finally you have a chance. No, that can't be your kavanah. By the way, if he didn't invite you to a wedding, you should thank him that you didn't have to schlep out and you could have gone to your regular shiurim that night. You should have bought him a cake, not badmouthed him. For the benefit of the person who was tricked, not to rejoice in the downfall of the one who caused this financial abuse. Even though you know for sure that the guy fooled him. In this prat, where your kavanah has to be l'tayelas, there's another detail which is basically the same thing, and this the Chofetz Chaim repeats very often. It has to be that you think a tayelas will come from it. Let's say you go to the guy and you say, your suit is a piece of junk. And the guy is a guy, he would never chas v'shalom do anything. He doesn't know how to rectify any situation. All he's going to do is he's going to be, brewing about it and brooding and just, immersed in his own repetitive thoughts, but he's not actually going to get his money back. He's not that kind of guy who knows how to he's just going to be upset, but he's not going to get his money back. He's not the kind of guy to go to a court and to ask people to help him. All it is rak yachav liboy bovad b'sipuroi. He's just going to be, wallowing in self-pity. You're just going to bring hatred in his heart on the other guy. Especially if he asks you, Look, there's nothing I could do, but I was just wondering, do you think this is a good suit? Heaven forbid that you should tell him that the guy got ripped off she'en kamayu. In the first scenario, where the person who was tricked cannot retract, not only you're not to tell him that he was tricked, you have a great mitzvah to lie to him and tell him what a beautiful car, what a wonderful car he got. Even though the car, it's really a Ford Taurus, and the car dealer put Tesla on it. Can you imagine? The guy bought a Ford Taurus. It sounds like a nuclear bomb. It has a motor like from the 1960s. And the guy took an old Ford Taurus and he wrote Tesla on it. You have to tell him, whoa, what a car. You're king of the road today. Even though, who knows if he's even going to get down the block. It's not considered lying. However, if instead of telling the guy who was abused, you tell the abuser, hey, you're a thief, give the guy the money back, you're obligated to tell the car dealer before you tell the buyer. If you estimate that your words will be listened to by the one who did the abuse, to return the ayna, you need to rebuke him privately, to return the ayna, and not let the purchaser know about it. In other words, this guy, you say, you like my suit? It says made in Italy. It says Super 120s. Yeah? But the guy made it in Taiwan, and it's Super 1, He basically bought a yard of rope, and he made a suit out of it. It's not Super 120s. So you don't tell the guy you bought it. You have to tell the buyer, you're a thief, give him his money back. If that's going to help. If there's another way for him to cause the benefit without telling, you shouldn't tell him. For example, let's say on the front cover of the paper, they wrote an article that this car salesman is a thief. So instead of telling the guy, you just conveniently deliver the paper to his front door so he reads it. Again, in a situation where he would be allowed to retract from the sale. Meaning, if you have a way to indirectly tell someone Rechilus when you're allowed to, it's better to tell them indirectly than to tell them directly. Where do we learn that from? We learn that from Yehoshua, where Yeshua said to Hashem, "Nu, who took from the spoils?" Hashem said, "I'm not a Baal Lashon Hara, make a goyrel." So even though the goyrel was divinely orchestrated, how is that any better? The answer is it's better to do it indirectly than to have to say yourself. Hey, you have to make sure the guy you're telling does not have a nature to be a peddler. Because if you recognize that he has this disparate, this lowly custom, then if you tell him that you got ripped off, he's going to go to the Meicher and he's going to tell the Meicher, Yankel told me you're a thief. So this is a very big dilemma, because the guy just got ripped off $1,000, and he's allowed to get his money back. But if you tell him, he's going to go to the seller and say, "Oh, Yankel told me," so you're going to be machshel him in Rechilus. Could you tell him to save him from his loss, even though it's going to be machshel him in Rechilus? Tzarachion. It's a question whether you can tell him the truth. Says the Chofetz Chaim, however, it seems that if you warn him, you'd better not tell that I told you. If you feel he's going to listen to, you should tell him. You should tell him he was ripped off so he could get his money back, and we hope that he will cooperate with your warning not to release that it was you. Okay, Rabbi Sai? So tomorrow is Chaf Gimel Elul, Erev, the yard site of the Chofetz Chaim. Have a good day, everyone. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
Recording stopped.